Welcome to the University Park Improvement District recorded meeting records. The board tried to delete these from the internet, claiming it cost too much to keep them saved on Zoom, so now they are here uploaded for free on YouTube. Meet the board members: James Slaymaker, the lying hypocrite; Joanne Zahner, who joined the board because she was upset her neighbor had more cars than her; and Sarah Dole, who agrees with them that it should be illegal for women to be topless.
What's going on? All right, what's the date today?
19th.
19 April, Saturday, 7 o'clock. We're having a special meeting to discuss the covenants. So I didn't send the agenda out. Basically said what we're going to do is we're going to go over the 21 covenants. And I'm going to talk about the information that we have to date. And if anyone else has information that they want to add, I'm hoping at the end of this meeting, we can eliminate the items that are already covered under another statute or under another structure of some sort, law or regulation. And then whatever the outliers are, those would be the ones that we really need to break down and determine, do we want to enforce them, or how do we enforce them? And are we willing to pay money to enforce them? So we're going to roll through these. I think it'll go pretty quick, hopefully. And there'll be time for discussion once we, on each item. So before we get started, is there any comments from the community? How about online?
Kurt just joined like 2 seconds ago, otherwise there wasn't yeah.
Okay. And then, you guys got it?
No.
All right. So basically the beginning of the covenant, and it's on the webpage if you haven't printed it. The beginning talks about the day it was created, and it talks about the legal description of what is covered by the covenant, which is basically properties in University Park. It's a lot of words, and I don't need to read the legal description. And there's basically 2 pages of what tract's called and Latin longs and things like that. And then there's some other legal jargon. So, okay. So the first one is, I'm going to read them because it's official. I mean, there's been in here 50 years. Some people are really invested in these, and we need to give some due process and some really careful thought into discussion before we do away with them or enforce them or whatever we choose to do. So, number 1, there shall not at any time hereafter be erected upon the above described real estate any building other than a residential dwelling, unit or units, and accessory building for storage of motor vehicles or for engaging in hobby activities. Said accessory buildings must be located on the lot with or on a lot adjacent to the residential unit for which they are an accessory. Only one principal structure shall ever be constructed on any one lot, although this restriction shall not prevent the construction of a structure on 2 or more adjoining lots. All structures built as residential units shall be exclusively designed and used as a single-family dwelling. So, and I'm going to give time to discuss this, but the best information we have on that is Bob Isaac. And Bob Isaac, if you don't know, is Riley County Planning and Zoning Development. And there was a question asked, and it says, are landowners required to get University Park approval before building permit is issued? On March 17th, Bob Isaac, this is his response. This is going to respond to like 7 or 8 of these are this is the answer. Anything having to do with building, I personally see this is the answer from the county. And it says, good morning, Joanne, and thank you for your inquiry. When someone applies for a building permit for property located in University Park, staff, as a courtesy, I'm going to underline that, asterisk that, as a courtesy, encourages applicants to check with UPID board to see if there would be any objections to their building plans. Please note that building permit approval through the county is not, and not is underlined by him, predicated upon UPID board approval. If a building proposal meets the county standards and specifications, we must issue that permit regardless of UPID board's determination. Similar to an HOA, enforcement of the UPID standards and requirements are privately enforced by UPID board. Hope this helps. If you have any questions or need additional information, give me a call. I did that last bit. Okay, so that's Bob Isaac's response. That's the county's response on item number 1, building. I personally think it applies to 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 6, 8, 9. We're gonna read them. And if there's a discussion or a disagreement, speak up. So that is the first one, and that is the response from the county. Did anybody else see anything in that that is not, that is not covered by Bob Isaac's answer in item 1? Nope, nothing in the room. How about online? Nope. Okay, so we're just gonna roll through them like that. Number 2. No structure or major improvement shall be commenced or maintained until, number 1, approved by the Board of Directors of University Park Improvement District. Number 2, compliance with all Riley County ordinance and regulations. Number 3, necessary permits have been issued by Riley County. Number 4, compliance with the provisions of this covenants is approved by the Board of Directors of University Park Improvement District. Okay. I believe the answer from Bob Isaac is the answer to item number 2 on the covenant. Is there any discussion in the room? Any discussion online?
Kurt's gone.
Kurt's gone. All right. Okay, number 3. All construction, improvements, alterations, etc. commence shall be pursued diligently to completion within 1 year of the starting date. A vacant lot will in no way exempt the lot owner from minimum utility charges beyond the first year of ownership or maintained or maintenance obligations to ensure visual quality of the improvement district from the date of conveyance. So I believe Bob Isaac's response on 17 March is the answer to that. Is there any?
So just to clarify, what is the answer? For what's your interpretation, what is the answer?
I believe that Bob Isaac's response covers this item. And what he's saying is, he doesn't recognize UPID's input on this issue. And it is, so it doesn't matter what we say, because he doesn't recognize it,
So at this point, we can just put a line through these. The ones that-
unless in the discussion, you feel that's not true, and maybe I am interpreting it incorrectly. So you need to speak up if you think I'm maybe missing something.
No, I just wanted to clarify,
I
make sure that
understand.
we're all under, in terms of you stated that this is the answer, well, I want to make sure that we're all very clear on the answer,
Yeah.
that basically what, per that email, any restrictions that we have regarding, building on site actually is outside of, I mean, if you're defaulting to the county to be able to manage that aspect of the land here.
Right, and in this choice, or in this discussion, we don't have a choice. They're not asking us, they're not giving us a choice, opt in or opt out. They're saying you're out. We don't care what you say, University Park, we are going to do it ourselves. It doesn't matter what you say, but you can send us a letter and say, yeah, we'd rather you not do that, nice letter. And they're gonna say, well, tough, we're gonna do what we want, because it meets the requirements at Riley County.
So basically, we're saying that we're gonna defer to Riley County ordinance.
That's what we're
to be
saying.
able To regulate.
He's basically said it was a courtesy, and this is the first time he's put it all in writing.
And I just wanna make sure.
I understand.
Yeah.
Make sure that for the record, this is where, that's the direction and that's the interpretation.
So based on that, these items would be eliminated from our covenants because they don't really apply.
They're null and void, essentially.
Right.
Yes, that would
That's what I
be,
think too. That's what I'm assuming from what you're
yeah,
saying.
I wouldn't say that. Yeah, and I really shouldn't use the word answer. There is no answer. That is my interpretation, because basically the left side, right side, the left side of this page is the covenant, and the right side is the effort that we put in, where we have found some level of answer or reciprocal document at a county or state or federal level, and we're sticking it on this thing. And that's what we were hoping, I got something from you, John, I appreciate it. We didn't see a lot of other stuff from other folks to answer. So when we're done with this, there's gonna be like 6 of these, I think, in my opinion, that we don't have good answers for. And we as a community need to go out and find those answers for those 6, so that the next meeting, or 7 or 10, whatever we agree on, that the next meeting, we need to have those reciprocal documents on that other side to determine, are we in fact covered? If these things are important and we need to be protected, we need to find that reciprocal document and find out who's gonna be the hammer, who's gonna enforce that. Did you ask something? I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. Is there any more discussion on, I call that three, the first three?
No,
No? Okay, so the second part of three is it says. No structure of a temporary character, mobile home, trailer, basement, tent, shack, garage, or other building shall be used on any site at any time as a residence, either temporary or permanently. The Board of Directors of University Park Improvement District may grant in writing a temporary variance during the period of construction to use a temporary structure or structure for the convenience of the building contractor. And in that one, I would say that I believe Bob Isaac's response is if we tried to enforce it, they would not accept our attempt to enforce that item. That would be, so is there any discussion from the group here? One thing on this, a couple things. I will tell you, I have seen the county enforce a uninhabitable dwelling over in Lakeside one time. On the edge of a cliff, somebody built a structure on the edge of a cliff and the county came out and said it uninhabitable, can't live in it. You know, so I've seen them where people were trying to live in trailers over in Lakeside back in the woods. And they stepped on them and said, no, you can't do it. So I have seen the county enforce this. Now, there is a mobile home, double wide trailer in University Park that snuck in to a previous board. They lied to the board about what they were putting in and until it was in, and it was up on the hill. You couldn't even see it. It's down there on Briar Lane. Okay, the county knows about it. So it's funny at some point, you know, it'll be interesting if somebody goes to the county and says, well, what are you gonna do about that? You're gonna make that trailer get out of here? It's against your regulation. It always was. They made a mistake to allow it in and they never forced them to get rid of it. And now it's the side of the hill fell on it and it's collapsed and it's a crap hole. So anyway, separate note, I'm just saying they are currently, I've seen this item enforced at the county level. So
Are mobile homes not allowed by the county? What is the county?
they are not allowed in University Park
By the county.
by the county. It's in that document. It is in,
Only in mobile home parks.
Yeah.
Are they allowed in Raleigh County?
Yeah.
They have to be on a fixed foundation otherwise, so if you took one and permanently attached it to a fixed foundation, it would be allowed, but it has to be on a fixed foundation unless it's inside of the mobile.
now I don't know if that applies to a private landowner in the middle of a field somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to answer that.
That's here and.
But in University Park, that definitely is the rule. They cannot, nobody can't put a double wide in. It has to be on a, as I said, permanent foundation. It's in the Riley County land regulation. Now, I mean, we could go to the trouble of finding that and sticking that over here on the right side of the column. But I feel that Bob Isaac's answer says it doesn't matter what we say, you know, I've done the legwork. I do know it's in that document. No one else, you know, if someone's worried about it, we can stick the thing over here on the right, but they're not gonna accept our input anyway, so.
But like I said, I think they're gonna put a permanent foundation, so it wouldn't be considered that, I mean, it's what the county. When I first started looking at, you know, I kind of asked on modular.
Yeah.
And they said, yeah, it'd be on a permanent foundation, that's fine, but.
Could be a crawl space, could be a slab, either one. I don't
Yes.
care.
so side note on Briar Lane, is that something that we can complain about? And I don't mean the board, but other people can complain about,
Yeah,
because why are
there-
they not?
There
That
are
seems
people in the
dangerous.
community that are worked up about it, and they could call up the county and say, why don't you enforce this item right here?
And isn't it dangerous You
Not
said
dangerous to
flat?
me.
if you walked under it?
Okay, if I trespass on somebody's property and I walk up inside of a hill, then yeah,
Fair
it'd be
enough.
dangerous.
Okay,
But it will not slide down the hill on Briar Lane. I'm pretty
Okay.
sure that won't happen, so you should be safe, John. Okay, so that is,
ridiculous.
that's three, and I said Bob Isaac's, response, I believe, covers our input on that item. Is there anything else in the room on that? Is there anything online?
There's nobody online.
All right, so that's three, so number four. Number four, this one's not Bob Isaac. So at number four says, none of the above described real estate shall be used for business purposes whatsoever. Home occupations may be allowed, but requires approval of the board of directors. I do not have a solid answer. I'm trying to find four in my notes here. I don't have a solid answer for four.
Right there.
Well, there. Okay, my glasses, guys.
Darn it.
Your new glasses.
We can use them.
They told me I had to wear these. Or I wasn't gonna get any better. Number four. And the answer is. That we found, you know, and that, you know, other people's answers would be helpful. For businesses and it's on the document, it's on the webpage. Is we found on page 157, 158, 161, it talks about restrictions on business. Okay, I don't have the notes here. I consider this will be one we'll break down at the next meeting. I don't know if anyone else has looked at it. And then short-term rentals is 178, 181. It's a pretty thorough, I think a couple of years ago, they did an update to that land county regulation. And one of the things I know, you have to have off-street parking. There's a bunch of things. There have to be inspections. There's things like that. If it's done correctly, you know, there's things that have to be done. And there's a bunch of short-term rentals out there. There's 4, maybe 5, they're pretty quick. So anyway, so that's that. I think that one probably will be pushed to the next meeting and we can break that one down a little more to see. I mean, honestly, businesses, people.
Covered really well.
I mean, they're covered. It's in the document. I've seen it. I think that we can talk about it to make sure people understand, see
It
what's
is
the
allowed,
issue.
that's what you're saying.
I'm sorry?
Certain with restrictions, yeah, you can't just have people, a whole bunch of people come park on your street and have a business.
I'm not gonna start a factory.
No retail shops,
That's
right,
right.
or a
That's right.
factory, but
To some degree, it's fine.
To some degree it is allowed. That's right. It's exactly right. To some degree. So we can discuss, but once again, you know, if we have a problem with that, then we have to talk about, well, how do we enforce it? Are we willing to enforce it? Are we willing to enforce it on our neighbors? Are we willing to spend money to enforce it? That'll be the next discussion though, on the ones that are not thorough or we disagree with as a community. Okay, any questions on that? Any additions? Okay, number 5. Number 5. All structures built within the University Park Improvement District shall be newly erected permanent buildings. This, excuse me, subsection specifically prohibits housing of a type where at any time the title to the residence is different document than the title to the real estate upon which the residence is located. So it's a trailer. No trailers, mobile homes, or temporary structures shall be allowed or used as residence. Trailer for purposes of this article should not include a boat, car, or utility trailer, although none of the above shall be used as a residence. Can't live in your car. Garages or buildings designed as garages shall not be used as residence. The intent of this subsection is to limit the building of new structures to what are known in the construction industry parlance, parlance, as site-built, stick-built homes. I don't think that's a word, parlance.
I think it might be.
You're in construction, you should know. Okay, sorry, side note, parlance, I mean, it's French or some shit. Okay, once again, I believe that Bob Isaac's response is not going to allow the University Park Board's input into affect the outcome of that. I will tell you, I have seen Riley County step up and tell folks that they can't build just a shop without a house. You can't build a shop first and I'll build a house next year. They don't allow it. They say you can build a house and the shop at the same time. If you pour your concrete, you can build your shop and then build your house. Constructive start on both of them at the same time under the same permit. I do know they allow that. I've seen them do it, but they're not going to allow anybody just to build shops. They haven't, and I don't. That's not us. That's been them all along. So anyway, any discussion on that item? And there's nobody on. So cool. All right. Wow. 5A. 5A. Okay. All outbuildings constructed must match or complement the primary residence in siding, color, and design. All outbuildings, including those for which building permits is not required, must be approved by the board of University Park Improvement District prior to construction. So first off, Bob Isaac's response is not going to allow our direct input in that. I do know that the board has softened that severely over time. It used to be your house had to be the same color as your shop. And there's been so much discussion since I've been out here on building permits about making things match. And that has been built out years and years ago. There's one of the things that wasn't really enforced at the community level. So, but it doesn't really matter. Bob Isaac's response is not going to allow our direct input on color and structure.
The one point though is that if there's something going on within the park on somebody's property that's not being enforced, whether it's by the county or, you know, if there's, like, for example, you were saying previous boards didn't do anything about the difference between the house and the shop. Well, if it's not being enforced, then it can't be enforced on anybody. You can't be selective. It's either enforced by on all, or none.
It's not exactly true.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Sorry.
Okay,
Doesn't matter.
you're gonna be sorry.
It's a
I'll
matter
tell you
of
that.
legal-
What it says right here, enforcement of these covenants shall be proceeded by law, equity against illegal action, in violation of there's one item. There's one item that answers that.
And what document are you referencing?
I'm in the covenant.
Okay, so in our covenants, it's not, I'm just checking to make sure it's not a legal law that you're referencing from Riley County.
I'm not, but but tell you what, when we get to it, it'll say, it basically, I'm gonna paraphrase it, it says, just because one of these covenants was not enforced, doesn't mean the rest of them aren't enforced. And just because one of these items wasn't enforced at one time, doesn't mean the rest of them weren't enforced. That's in the precedence before.
So, but what I'm saying is that if the board has not enforced a covenant, okay, and I'm just gonna say covenant 5 feet, whatever, right? All right, and then I violate that, and then the board comes to me and says, you've got to do X, but they haven't enforced 5B on anybody else. If they come to me and try to do that, I'm gonna take you to court and I'm gonna win.
Wait, once again, I agree. I didn't write it. I think all of it is gone.
I'm just saying that if any of these covenants is, if there's a variance, if it's not been enforced by one person, it doesn't matter which board. If you don't enforce it for one, you don't enforce it for all. And I'm not talking about all the covenants, I'm talking about a very specific covenants.
I agree 100%. Go
Okay,
ahead.
we're on the same page.
We are 100%. Anything else?
What I did, just a reference, I did send out a follow-up and the things in terms of, what we can enforce and what we can and can't enforce. And one of the things, they had a little checklist there in terms of if you're looking at covenants, and one of the things that they said there is in selective and inconsistent enforcement. If you're selective or inconsistent in how you enforce a covenants, then anybody that you attempt to enforce that on has a legal stronghold in terms of the foothold, in terms of basically saying, no, I don't have to do that.
Okay, I agree.
Okay.
So in the time and 10 years I've been out here, I've seen one legal action to enforce the covenant, and it just happened, and it was the only person that had a hooked animal, and it was only attempted to enforce once, and it failed. And now we're here today.
Because it violated of federal laws, what it did at that point.
Yes.
There you go. That's the answer.
So,
Cool. So, I mean, I think we all agree, either we're gonna enforce them uniformly, and I'm about fairness, we either enforce them all or we don't enforce any of them, that's why I'm here. That's why, when we ran the election, I said I wanted to discuss covenants when I ran for the board, and then we're here now to talk about it. My number one thing I want to try to resolve, so let's whittle it down to the stuff that matters to the community and that we're willing to enforce, if there's any. So, what number was I? Awesome.
5, you were.
5A. Okay, let's see, primary. And 5, I believe, Bob Isaac's response, he's not gonna accept our input. 5B, all lots shall be surveyed prior to building thereon. They didn't require that anyway, but it's not really required at the county level, I guess, because I've seen building permit for houses and there was no surveys done. But anyway, that Bob Isaac's response is the answer to us, that he's not gonna accept our input. 5C, variances from the requirements of this subsection may be granted by the board of director of University Park Improvement District upon application to the board. Said variances may be granted on a case-by-case basis and are solely within the discretion of the board. So that was a little bit different. So first off, Bob Isaac's response is not going to accept our input from the board unless I requested a variance on my property that was adjoining University Park property. As anybody that requests a variance to an adjoining property, the adjoining property owner has the option to weigh in and say yes or no. I agree or I disagree. So when I came before the board 4 or 5 years ago, the board had an opportunity that I believe would still be accepted today by the county because University Park is the adjoining property owner and I encroached closer to University Park property from 25 foot to 5 foot. And the board said it was back in the woods. They didn't care. They said, okay, well, it's not on the board then. Nobody did me a favor. I just, like any other community member, I made the request and they granted it. And then I went to the county and had to go before the county commissioners and make a So I do believe, as any property owner, that thing is still gonna be enforced. So. You got something? I'm sorry. All right, so anyway, that's my input on, but I believe Bob Isaac's answer about the community overall input from the board, that's gonna be the response. Any input from the board? I should ask you guys. I just
The way that's written, it makes it sound like University Park would approve any request for variance, and what you're saying is just if it was University Park property. So it seems like,
Right, if it
believe-
was adjacent to your property, then you get a letter.
right, so it
Yeah.
seems like it doesn't really apply, because it's whoever the property owner is.
Right,
that's
I'm
the
just trying to be clear, though, in the one instance, I believe in the future, the University of Arc Board will still weigh in, it's not gonna be the community. I mean, it will through the board, when I made the request, the whole community was there, and I made the request in front of the whole community, and there was discussion and back and forth. But in the end, it was the 3 board members that agreed to grant me the variance on the property, and that's still gonna be in place, the same as somebody tried to push up on your property.
Just through Riley County
But
instead.
it's a Riley County process, it's a document that they sent me and.
We don't really need it in our code.
No, we do not. I'm just
Okay, that's
trying
what
to
I
be
mean.
clear
Oh, that's
that
what
it
I
may,
wasn't clear, that's what I was trying to get to, we don't need it, that's what I.
You do not.
We don't, I got it.
Bob Isaac's response, knows our input, in my opinion. Variance, okay, number six. No livestock or poultry shall be kept upon any lot. The keeping, boarding, or breeding of dogs, cats, or other pets on a commercial basis shall not be permitted within the University Park. So we all know about hooked animals and we know how that thing works. We don't really need to get into that. Dogs and cats, okay, so there's a kennel out here, and there could be another request for a kennel someday in the future. The last time a kennel was requested out here, it came through the board. And the board, this was 6, 7, I don't know, 8 years ago, the board at the time approved the request for the kennel for a variance. And then it went up to the county commissioners, and because the board approved it, well, I couldn't say because, that's not fair, but the board did approve it, and then it went to county commissioners and they approved the variance. First off, planning and zoning did, and then the commissioners did, and they received the variance to put a kennel on there. So sometime in the future, if somebody else wanted a kennel, it will, if this item's not in here and there is no covenant, it's not gonna come before the board. It's gonna solely be the adjoining property owners, and it's gonna be at the county commissioners level. So if there's a problem on that level, then we as a community, individuals as a community, would have to go up and stand up in front of the commission and say, hey, I got a problem with that, and here's my reason why, whatever that reason is. That's anytime there's a variance given for anything, that there's an opportunity to speak at the county commissioners to voice your opinion, not that they care, because they
Yeah,
don't.
so we did that.
Okay, right, not that they care, but it doesn't mean you don't have a right.
All they
to
care
speak.
about is that it follows their guidelines, they don't care.
That's what we found out.
Yeah.
So anyway, just so we understand that,
Now, you're not talking about the kennel, you're talking about
bigger picture.
another,
I'm just saying the experience that I had was as a landowner,
yeah,
adjoint or near, we had opposition to it and it didn't matter. They said it falls within our guidelines. There's nothing we can do. If you're not happy, University Park can take her to court. That's what they
Yeah.
said.
And that's basically what Bob Isaac's email says, the exact same thing, 100%. That's what Bob Isaac's email said.
For me,
Okay.
It seems like we don't need that. It doesn't matter.
I would say that, and the reference 6. Sorry. 6. Sorry. Oh, here it is, I'm sorry, got it. Riley County Land Development Regulation, page 192, talks all about it. Talks about chickens and talks about livestock. I did not actually find a lot about dogs and cats. We're gonna talk about it in a second, about numbers of dogs and cats. I didn't find that in that document about how many dogs and cats you have. So it may not, we'll talk about that in a second, but it may not be in there. Okay, so number 6, the livestock poultry thing, any questions on that? So basically the thing says you can have 6 chickens, I believe, per lot. And maybe a little more, a little less, depending on how much land you have. No roosters are allowed. It's in that land regulation document. And we're already living it out here, okay? I mean, we're living with a donkey in accordance with land regulation document. We're also living with chickens. So we're already following that document. Any input from the community? Any more input in the room? Who's it back online, Kurt?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything online? Okay, 6A. It is recognized that pets are important to families living in University Park, pretty much everybody, I might add. It is also recognized that pets can be a source of unpleasantness between neighbors. Therefore, to promote harmony in the community and protection for persons and pets, the following restrictions are made. Dogs and cats shall be required to have rabies protection. Dogs and cats shall not be allowed to run loose. Outside pens, kennels, and structures for the keeping of pets shall be aesthetically compatible with the overall plan for University Park. They should be placed and built such as to completely screen from view of adjacent neighbors and much as possible. So, I mean, obviously. Okay, so 6A, first off, those things are not, I didn't find those in the land county regulation about how to pen your dog and hide it in the back of your property. It's not out there, I would say, unless somebody can find it for the next meeting, that'd be great. So, and we all know when you drive around, I mean, there are dog pens in the front, there's dog pens in the back. You know, there's dog pens behind electric fences that run up to the border. There's dogs that don't have voices. There's dogs that have too many voices. It just is what it is. Yeah, there's ways to address that. And that comes up under the nuisance thing, it's barking dogs. So as far as for 6A, for dogs and cats and is there any input from the community on that? I'm saying I'll let this one, you know, I think this will ride to the next community just to have another opportunity if somebody has additional information to talk about. It's not a clean answer. I couldn't find a clean answer, so maybe somebody else can. If we can find a clean answer, either through a state law or a county law that covers that, that's the clean answer. If we can't find the answer, it's like, well, hell, what do we want to do as a community? Do we want to try and enforce that in some manner? Is it important to us? That's where the discussion's going to be. Okay, anything else in the room about that? Anything online? Okay. 6B, each residence shall be limited to a total of 2 dogs and 4 cats. I'm not sure why it's not 4 cats and 2 dogs, but it says 2 dogs and 4 cats. Okay, we're gonna let that ride till the next meeting, but it's silliness, obviously, to cherry pick dogs, number of dogs and cats. In my opinion, that's my personal opinion. I shouldn't give it. I'm sorry. Does anybody else have anything to say about it? Number of dogs and cats allowed?
One of our cats is actually a dog.
Transition.
I'd like to see that one removed.
Okay, and then 6C, which is actually a building. It's funny, underneath dogs and cats, they have all plumbing shall be approved by a licensed plumber before the walls are covered. Okay, there is no requirement in Riley County for building code inspection. None. They won't come out anyway. Good luck calling them. They're not gonna come. So I mean, that's not even Bob Isaac. That's just not available. It's like a maple. Unless we as a community feel that one's important and we want to, it's not enforced now. I built a house. Nobody came to look at anything.
Is there any way that these last 2 are for like outside pens and that's why they're under the animal?
No, I just think they stuck another wrong thing. Just somebody just wacko.
They definitely came and inspected at my house. A lot.
They
Wait,
did, the county did?
Mhm. Too much.
what do you mean? The county came out?
County came out.
Who called them to come out? Okay, well,
Probably because of the permit that our contractor put in, maybe, I don't
That's
know.
probably, cause I went in for just general information for if I wanted to finish the basement, just so. For reasons, and they're like, you draw us the plan, you pay for the permit, you draw the plans, and once you're done, you just tell us you finished, and the guy's gonna walk in and be like. Finished basement.
Yeah.
Finished
Right.
basement.
Yeah,
Good job, and
Right.
that's the end of it.
that's what it was when I built a shop and a house. They gave me an occupancy permit, but you're saying they came out and did an electrical inspection, a plumbing inspection?
they came out intermittently to check. It was kind of a pain in the neck. They never would let us know and they just show up.
Never heard of that before.
The only people who came out, we built our shop, was the appraiser section.
Okay, well, if you're silly enough to call the county and ask them to come out and do county inspections, then
I did.
then go ahead, but I wouldn't do it. I also wouldn't tell them I was overhauling my basement.
I said, in the
You're
future, we
being
might want
recorded.
to.
I don't, that's fine.
I'm just.
Okay, so that's the plumbing, and the next one is 6D is all electrical wiring shall be approved by a licensed electrician. It's a good idea, by the way. It's not actually required at the county level. If you don't know what you're doing, I recommend you hire an electrician, that's what I'd say. But we're gonna leave that till the next meeting. Maybe somebody has something pertinent on that. but, yeah. Okay, anything else in the room on that, on the electrical? Anything for you, inspection lady? No. 7, the size of a residential dwelling shall be a minimum 1,000 square feet. Plans must be submitted to the board of directors for approval. Said plan shall include a site plan indicating property lines, location of proposed structure and or site improvements, the relationship to the ground. Number 2, floor plans indicating wall lines, room use, windows and door location and overall structure dimensions. The board of directors shall provide written approval, rejection of the plan to specification submitted within 31 days of the receipt. Should the board reject a plan or request for changes and the plans are resubmitted, the board shall have 31 days upon which to act on the resubmitted plans. Approval or rejection of the said plans or specifications shall be made in an open meeting of the board of directors of University Park Improvement District. So I believe Bob Isaac's response to the email says they're not going to acknowledge University Park's input on this item. That would be, I will say that Riley County is, their minimum dwelling is 750 square foot and ours is 1,000 square foot. So if it's important to the community that we have 1,000 square foot houses, are we willing to enforce 250 square foot through a legal action? And you could ask nicely, but in the end, you say no, you're gonna sue them over it. So that's the question. But in the end, Bob Isaac's response pretty much nulls our input. So is there any disagreement or input from the room here? Board online? Be 7. We on for a half hour? We're gonna be long.
37.
7. Here's the thing. Okay. Number 8, no residential structure shall be more than 2 stories, not counting a basement. I don't think Richard Soash got that memo. Bob Isaac's response pretty much covers that. You know, you can build a skyscraper if you want, whatever. I don't actually know what Raleight County's height restriction is. I've never even looked it up. So, but anyway, I believe his response,
We need a line of Riley.
eliminates our option to have input. So is there any discussion from the community? Anything online in the room? No. The foundation shall not be more than 18 inches above the highest grade line of the lot. Exteriors of all houses must be completed within 12 months after groundbreaking. Once again, Bob Isaac's response, I believe, covers that item. Any input, concerns? Number 9, all structures must have a 25-foot setback from any street or roadway. I mean, you know, Bob's response covers that.
Now, our foundation is much higher than 18 inches.
Yeah, there's so many of them.
Not that we did it.
But as far as a setback, that is a standard setback requirement for roads and back lots, property lines and stuff, but. And if you want to do away with that, or you want to get closer, you just request a variance through the process. And, you know, it's not, in this instance, if you try to be close to the road, if you're on the county road, then you request the variance through the county, you know, they have to weigh in because it's county property. But if you try and get close to a township road, that's the roads in University Park are not University Park property, they're township. So that would mean the township would weigh in on how close to the road you were, not University Park. So it really won't be a board issue anyway. Anyway, any input from the community on that? Once again, Bob Isaac's response, I think, to that. Okay. Number 10, garbage. All lot owners must make proper arrangements for disposal of garbage and trash. This applies to the owner living at his residence or renting to others. Refuse collection is available. Trash cans stored near the street shall be screened from public view. Burning of trash or any other material in an open fire is prohibited. So Bob's answer does not cover that. On this one, I have contacted the fire chief and for the specific language in writing on what can be burned. Is it legal to burn garbage in a 55-gallon drum trash can? I don't know. Okay, I want to see from them. You know, I want to know in writing. So I don't have that answer yet. I have requested it for 2 weeks, 3 different times, and I haven't received anything back yet. So I'll start back and ask again for it. But that to me anything burning personally for me is a safety issue and I have concerns. So this item will definitely carry over to the next meeting. But is there any input or concern or don't care or, thoughts on this item? Number 10, garbage.
Definitely, Kara, it'll be interesting to get the response.
Yeah,
Yeah, I care more about the burning than seeing a trash can by someone's house that is sitting by their house.
oh, you mean like, yeah, a trash can located near the street of the
Yeah,
house?
it says it has to be
Yeah.
out of view. And like,
Thing is there's a lot of I'm older, I'm getting older. There's one day I bring my trash up and down the hill still. The day will come where I cannot physically bring my trash up and down the hill and it's gonna stay down.
I do have a comment though, like we have some Airbnbs around us and they're not there. And they have their trash cans on the street and a storm comes up
And they get knocked
and
over.
blows their trash cans in the middle of the road. And some nice neighbor will pick it up out of, the road across the street or a lot across the street or the middle of the road. I mean,
Okay, so,
so maybe that's an Airbnb issue. I don't know.
well, what it is if it happens on my road, I would contact the owner of the Airbnb and I'd say, hey, trash is on Wednesday, they use the same trash I do. And your trash lady or your cleaning lady leaves the trash out every day, all week, and the trash keeps blowing over. Is it possible they could put the trash out on Monday instead of on Tuesday, take the trash can back on Thursday? They come every day and clean the damn thing. So that is just an easy conversation first to have. I mean, we should always try to resolve problems with our neighbors with a direct, nice, friendly conversation. And if it doesn't, there are other ways. I mean, there's a nuisance thing that, and not so much in this document, there's a Raleigh County regulation for nuisance that covers that kind of thing. Your trash keeps
We might
blowing down
read the
there.
Airbnb thing and, or whatever, short-term rental thing and see what it says, because
Yeah,
just to see what.
yeah, and it may be, so there you go. That's great homework to find that answer, because that's an
It's
issue.
not really, I don't really see it with neighbors, it's the
I do.
Airbnbs. Oh, you do?
Okay,
We pick it up all the time.
so that's a homework issue that we as a community need to find and bring to the next meeting to help answer that for everybody else that has a question that maybe you didn't speak up about it. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
Is it
Okay.
ours, Joanne?
And it's not the Airbnb next door.
Oh, okay.
You wanna-
Is there any other comments on that? Okay. Mowing, lot owners shall be responsible for mowing grass and weeds to prevent the spread of noxious weeds and prevent fire danger. Lot owners not in compliance will be sent a written notice to mow by board of directors. If not taken care of, the board will contract for mowing, and the fee therefore plus administrative costs will be added to the lot owner's real estate taxes. So let me get the right reference here. 11. I mean, I guess I said something at the last meeting and it got taken wrong. I'm not going in people's yards and measuring their grass if people live in a house. I'm going on empty lots that I mow or we contract mow and we submit to the county taxes. So that's different than going into somebody's front yard.
But I think what I heard was they felt bad that you were having to go and do that.
They did, but that's
Yeah.
fine. That's a choice I made because I think if I put it on somebody's taxes, I want to be able to say why I do it. I don't want it's personal for me. You put some on my taxes, it can be personal too, so you better have a good reason for doing it and be able to prove it. So anyway. The grass height requirement is a county resolution. We pretty much moved to that, I think, 2 years ago. It used to be different. When I first got on the board, they were doing it 3 times a year. But when this other document became available, we went to not just for 3 holidays to mow, we went by strictly the grass height. And it's actually not 3 times a year. I mean, some of the lots, for various reasons, it only gets mowed twice a year. Just because it's not tall, it doesn't get mowed. And some neighboring lot owners, don't want to see the grass 12 inches and they choose to mow it early. Okay, that's their own choice. If I can't get out there and get a measure on it to see how high it is before you mow it, then I can't put it on the taxes. I'm not comfortable doing that. So that they know who, I've talked to them about it. I mean, it's not a big deal. It's just a choice. We all make choices and they choose to do that. I mean, if it was next to me, I'd probably mow it too. And I mow it more than 3 times a year. So it's a choice. So as far as people's yards where you have a home and you're living in your yard, you don't really have a general problem out here with community members. As a general rule, when people aren't mowing the grass that surrounds their house. if that gets to be a big problem down the line, you know, I don't know what the answer is for that. I mean, this 12-inch thing does apply to homes. If you have a home there or an empty lot, it still applies. You know, so I suspect that we would not enforce mowing somebody's front yard, but we would go to the county and we would see what they are going to do. You know, the properties that are on township roads is different than properties that are on county roads. County roads have a different standard of enforcement. And the ability to mow it from the noxious weed department is different than on the township road. The county's not gonna go mow property on a township road. But they may, under certain circumstances, mow property that's adjacent to a county road. I talked to them, I know. So I don't have it in writing, but that's kind of thing where I don't have a good answer yet. I don't have anything in writing yet, so I'd like to leave that open and see what I can find out. It's gonna be on me because I'm doing the mowing thing and see if I can find some better documentation on that. Okay, is there anything from the community on mowing? Anything online? Okay. Motor vehicles, number 12 here. Motor vehicles shall remain on existing roadways. Motorbikes and off-road vehicles shall be restricted to existing roadways, number 12. And what I made my notes on that is, first off, golf course rules are separate from the covenants. A number of years ago, or I think maybe 2 years ago, whatever it was, the board, you know, clarified what was allowed on the golf course and documented with signage. You know, people didn't necessarily know. They moved out here, they didn't know what you could do. So now there's clear signs about it. And, you know, I've been asked, you know, how's that going to be enforced? Well, ultimately, University Park property is owned by and managed by, I mean, it's owned by the community, but the board managed it. So if there was a problem on University Park property big enough and so severe that the board would have to make a decision after nice letters and please and thank yous, or do they want to enforce it at another level? As far as I know, it's never been done. It'd be a hell of a deal to do it. You know, it'd be a big deal, but that's how I would see it would play out. As far as the other land that's owned by University Park, you know, there's no signage for the burn pile area. There's no signage in Haywood Park. There's no signage on all the other property owned. There's a lot of property out here, acres and acres owned by University Park. There's no signage saying what you can and can't do on it. So, you know, I'm not saying what can or can't be done. There's no signage. So if it's not written, I guess you got to figure it out. You know, I don't know. Okay. I don't want to even I don't want to get a handle on that. That's too much. Next board can try and resolve what can be done on undeveloped University Park property. Yeah, it's just too much. But anyway, this one does not apply to University Park property, to be clear. This thing applies. I mean, first off, you know, motor vehicles shall remain on existing roadways. Existing roadways are either county or they're township. That's not us. You know, how are we going to manage what can happen on a county road? We're not. We're going to get our own cop and write cop tickets. We're not. So, you know, I think we need some more information, but that would be a very difficult one to enforce. That's what I would say, in my opinion. What do you guys think? You see how this thing is going to be important in the future of University Park's happiness and anything? No, that's fine. I mean, anything online? How about you guys? You got any strong feelings? We can let it ride to the next one, but just be thoughtful about that one. Okay. Number 13. Unlicensed and inoperable or abandoned vehicles shall not remain visible in excess of 14 days per A-1 Riley County zoning regulation without being placed in a garage or screened on all sides. Violators can be prosecuted by Riley County. So, and then it says, yeah, but we'll do that first. So, I mean, that's a Riley County, that's in the Riley County land regulation. I know it is. I called the county myself on abandoned cars on property, and I know previous boards have done the same thing. And they have a guy hired at the county now, and his job is to come out and enforce that document. And I know he came out and he did a check and he responded back to me with a response. So, you know, that rule is enforceable. And we as a community, it's either a problem or it's not. If it's a problem, try and resolve it with them. If you can't resolve it with the neighbors, then call the county and let them resolve it, period. That's it. But that's my opinion on that. So what do you think of the room here? John, you got anything on that? Any concerns,
I
input?
mean, it sounds like that's a county ordinance, so it's not applicable to us.
And it's covered under that level, so we didn't necessarily need it on ours.
Correct.
So that's been one that's been mentioned to me, and I've said the same thing. You should try and contact the neighbor or contact Riley County. It doesn't need to go through the board.
Yeah, it's not a board. I'm not gonna be a throughput, because somebody doesn't have the emotional fortitude to call themselves. You can call them anonymously. And you can call. When I made the call, they said, well, do you want this in an anonymous report? I said, no, you can give my name, I don't care. So you can do an anonymous report and no one's gonna come back on you. No one's gonna know specifically that you made the report. It's totally anonymous, or you can say it's you. I mean, it's up to you. You can do what you want. But yeah, you need to handle your own stuff. Cause I do. If it's next to me, I'm gonna handle it. Okay, anything online about that? All right, let's see. All lot owners shall provide off-street parking for their vehicles. So it's in the covenant. It's silliness because there's homes been out here for 30, 40 years and there was no off-street parking. They allowed them to build. They did it that way from the beginning. So the fact that it's in here, first off, you can park vehicles on roads. We know you can. You can park them on Riley County roads. You can block a whole lane of traffic and it's legal in Riley County. You can also do it on the township roads. I seen a camper set up in the middle on one lane of a township road with two slides, and the slides ejected out in the other lane. And you drive in at night and you literally there's a slide with no reflectors on it that's sticking out in the road. So what do? I call the freaking cops and say, hey man, there's a guy parked camping in the middle of the road with the slides blocking the lane. You gotta cross in the grass to get around it. Nothing we can do. Okay, well, I guess that's where I choose to live, and that's fine. I like everything else about it, well, most things, so I'm willing to live with that. It only happened once, but so this is silly right here. This is just pure silliness. So it's not enforceable unless we are willing to sue somebody. And if we didn't, the previous boards didn't sue about a guy camping in the middle of the road, are we gonna sue somebody for parking? No. I'm not gonna vote for that. I'm not gonna spend money on that. County ain't gonna help you. Anyway, that's a lot there, but it happened. I seen it. You can imagine the camper with slides blocking a lane. I seen it. About a month and a half, 2 months, they were moving out. So what? The thing's somewhere else. Anyway. Any input? That's the best story. You're not gonna beat that one, I don't think. All right. Anything online? Okay. Let's see here. Where township, county, and state regulations, code, and ordinance, or laws are, this is number 14, where township, county, and state regulations, codes, or ordinances, or laws are applicable and more restrictive than these covenants or restrictions, they shall supersede the provisions therein. So that's not really a covenant. That's like, I call that legal speak. Okay, it's not really a covenant. We don't really need to discuss it.
We all know that that's what applies anyway.
And
Doesn't matter if it's over there or not.
Yeah.
we'll say this, it didn't matter at the county level. It doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't matter if we went to court. John did, I was gonna do it at the end, but John did research and he provided some stuff. I mean, clearly, the covenants are, you can attempt to enforce them. And you'll either win or lose, by the merits of the case. So, John provided some current stuff. It's the cover.
There are examples of improvement districts that have taken homeowners to court and won,
That's right.
including one over a sign, a First Amendment case, and the improvement district won. So, it depending upon, like I said, depending upon what you do and how you do it, yes, you can enforce these, and it depends on how much heartburn it gets you, how much money you want to put towards it, right? And so that's where you're careful, but, so it can be enforceable, but you have to be careful about what you like I said, in terms of what you choose to try to enforce.
Yeah, I would say that if any covenants were to remain, then that item would still need to be in there, this clause, because it has legal speak,
I think it's a good clause, because it basically, and it, especially for anybody that's thinking about moving into here. It lets them know that, there are ordinances around it, they should be aware of that, so. And if there is anything that we have left over after we go through a review. It's good to say in there basically that, we recognize that the county and above. Those supersede anything that we might have.
Yeah, so it would need to remain if there's any comment, so, but anyway, that's legal speak, we don't really need to debate it or discuss it, it just needs to remain if. Is there anything else, community wise? Anything else in there? Excuse me, number 15, nuisance activities. No obnoxious or offensive activity shall be carried out within University Park which will constitute a public nuisance. No property shall be used as dumping ground for refuse, trash, garbage, debris, or other waste. With all properties to be maintained in sanitary condition. So it's kind of two things there. So. Okay, let me find 15 here first and then 15. So 15. Okay. We actually, the donkey thing went to court. Not under covenant, it was like a subsection under covenant, it went under nuisance. Because nuisance in Riley County or not everywhere covers a lot of stuff is covered under nuisance. Trash cans blown would be a nuisance, barking dogs is a nuisance. Donkey in our discussion, our attempt was a nuisance. So. This is gonna require like going to the police station, I'm guessing here. And sitting down with someone at that level and then providing us a list of what exactly, is the nuisance, how encompassing is it? I don't have that, this needs to be an open item and there's a lot of things here, so I'm gonna update this document, we're gonna send this out, for homework for hopefully, I'm not doing all of it. But someone's gonna have to do some of it, I'm gonna do the burning stuff, all the burning stuff, I'm telling you, I'll own that, I'm gonna go find that, I'm gonna find out about the grass, those are the three that I'm gonna do. But other people need to speak up, or say they're working on it or something, so we don't duplicate the same work. That's the worst thing is waste time. But the nuisance thing covers a lot out here. And that is really how things are gonna be handled in the future is nuisance, but that's the police. So we gotta find out from the police, the list of what they consider a nuisance, and I think they'll respond under the call, but the responding police officer may choose not to write it up because it doesn't meet, in his opinion, their criteria of what a nuisance is. He may make a report on it, but there may not be anything to happen out of it, but doesn't mean you can't call. So we got to find that out as a community because that covers a lot of these things. So
Hey, how do we even find that out?
okay, what I think the answer is to go in the police station. You're probably going to get a police liaison person that's going to come out and set community liaison person, and they're going to set out and they're going to fill out the document. You don't want verbal. We need the written document because we need to be able to share that with community members so they know trash can blowing in the road 3 times in a row and I got photos of it. That's enough. I'm going to call the police. The property owner wasn't willing to do anything and I'm gonna let the police handle it. So that's how in my opinion, that's what I would do if I was gonna handle that. I'd go down to the police station, I'd tell them my problem, see if they can solve it. That's what I would do. Anyway, any other thoughts on that? I mean, does anybody else see another way besides the police station on a nuisance thing? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is. Okay, anything, you guys got anything?
Nope.
Okay. Burning, and I'm gonna look this one up. I'm working on this, burning. So burning, outdoor burning of any kind shall be prohibited within University Park. Except in that location designated by the improvement district and under the supervision. So. And what do I have? 16 verse 16. So I have fire chief. So we have a burning area here in University Park. But way back when they set it up, we got a burn hole that we put lumber and stuff in, and then we have not stuff. We put lumber and wood in. With nails is fine. Not tires, not asphalt, not shingles, to be clear, and I don't say stuff. There's a sign that clearly says when you drive down the burn pile on the right-hand side, it says what can go in that hole. And when you go down the burn hole itself, there's another sign that clearly says what's allowed. That's the only thing that can go in there. And then next to that is a big pile of brush. The naily boards, the boards don't go in the brush pile, and the brush doesn't go in the wood pile. when they burn, they choose to grab some of that brush and stick it in the wood pile to help it burn easier and quicker and faster. But that's the people who light the thing on fire. That's their choice. They put in what they need. The rest of us just put it in those designated areas. So what this says is, we can't burn our lots, like if you have an empty lot and you want to burn like the farmers do, you want to burn your lot, you can't do that according to this. Okay. If we do away with this, it's going to go to what Riley County burn permit is. Riley County burn permit basically says that you as an individual property owner will call up and say, I want to burn this address, my lot in front of my house. And on this day, and they'll say, okay, it's not a red flag day, go ahead, call when you're done. And you got to fill out paperwork. It's not simple. You got to fill out some paperwork. And then hopefully you don't burn everything down. And then when you're done, you call and say the fire's out, they didn't burn the house down. And that's the end of it. So, if we don't have this document in here, that means people can burn their lots on their property. And hopefully it won't get into the cedar trees that are surrounding everybody else's property. I mean, this is a concern. This is a safety concern personally for me. But, I don't know what that really means. I need to get the answer from the fire chief on what the exact requirements are and share with the community and then see what we're willing to do. I personally think, my personal feeling, James Laymaker here, is we have a place to burn our brush and we have a place to burn our wood, and my trash goes to the trash man. I pay $14 a month or whatever it is. And I'm good for that. That's where I choose to live. I have concerns about living in a place where everyone else can, including me, can choose to light my pasture on fire or my 2 empty lots, or that's a concern for me. So what's
What about
about?
burn pits? Like somebody's got in their backyard has a little fire pit.
No, okay, wait, burn pit's different.
The wording would seem, cause like, if I'm looking at it right now, it said burn,
A fire pit.
outdoor burning of any kind. So if you have a chimenea or those little enclosed
Yeah.
things, the wording would say outdoor burning of any kind,
You're
so
right.
that would technically fall into it. So if you're keeping it, a great idea for burning my side lot, I guess.
Yeah.
But rewording it like, hey, if you have a small fire pit and I'm not throwing 80,000 pallets in there and lighting it on gasoline.
But you're not
Should be fine,
required,
but-
you're not required to get a permit.
No.
From the county for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fire pit.
When I got here,
Yeah.
people were driving around and knocking on doors and said, hey, you're not allowed to have that open fire in your brick line burn pit. They were doing it. It was a thing. It's not the thing anymore. Nobody says anything anymore. But it was a thing when I first got here. So obviously, people are having an open fire inside of an enclosed structure of some kind, hopefully with a fire hose and a bucket or a method to put the fire out, simple, common sense things. But that's a thing. That's a thing that we as a community need to figure out, to define is if I dig a hole with a skid loader and I fill it full of pallets of wood and light it on fire, does that count as a burn? As a controlled burn in a hole? I don't know. I mean, because I can dig a pretty big hole till I get rocked. But you see what I'm saying? I mean, it gets to be kind of messy, in where to define. Obviously, we all have outside fire pits and things. I mean, that's just how we live and we want to live that way. And everybody should be able to do that. But the next line is burning a 1/4 acre lot. Is that a line? If I pile the brush up on my lot and light it on fire, is that a problem? Okay, I don't know. It depends on what's above you and around you and how close the neighbors are. And I mean, if my neighbor does it, I got a problem. If you do it down on Briar Lane, that's probably, or the fire department probably put it out before it gets to me. It's a choice, you know what I'm saying? It's a choice that affects you, but it also affects your neighbors, so burning safety, that's a big thing for me that.
But there are county regulations surrounding burning.
Yeah, I'd love to get them too. I've asked
Having
them.
a burn permit, in order to be able to have a burn permit, you have to go through and file that. So
Yeah.
there are regulations, restrictions around doing that. So if you do go ahead and say, for example, this wasn't in place and somebody does go and lights their yard on fire and burns it, and they don't have a permit. Okay, so then they can get called on that, and they would be, even if it's if it's a green day, you can go, it's not a red flag day, but if they do a burn and they don't have a permit for it, they can get in trouble for that.
Right, so
So,
I don't care if they get in trouble. I care that they burn my house up.
Right.
Just because you pull a permit, I call up and I pull a permit, doesn't mean that I have the technical knowledge and skill to burn my pasture and not burn your house up,
Mhm.
and not light the cedars on
But
fire.
I have a question. Doesn't Riley County, whatever their rules are about burning, gonna supersede anything you put in that document about burning?
Okay, but yeah, unless, in the end,
That's what I was.
right, so
So, yeah.
once again, unless, as John said, as a community, we decide, we have determined, we know the covenants are enforceable. He found references, current references. So if in a community, we said in the end, there are one, you shall not burn. I'm just saying that, okay? I'm just trying to say, and that's the only one that we want. And that's the only one that matters to us, and we were willing to enforce it with court and money. And, you know, I don't know, I'm not saying we do, okay? I'm just saying, if that's the one that matters, then that's it. So how do you enforce it? I don't know. If we choose in the end to keep one covenant burning, and we say it's important to us, and we're gonna enforce that one, fine. So the next question I'm gonna ask is, what's the mechanism to enforce it? What does that mean? So I say, hey, don't burn. I don't want you to burn my house up. Well, I'm gonna burn anyway, the guy says, and he lights it on fire. Okay, before I ever sue anybody or stop it, my house is already burned up. Now it's a separate legal issue. So is it really worth leaving it as a covenant? It's saying, if you burn my house up because you're stupid,
It's gonna be handled through the legal process.
yeah, we're already going to court, so, and the fire chief writes him a ticket for $20 for lighting my house on fire to burn outside. He didn't know what he was doing. It doesn't matter. My house is already gone. I'm just saying, so I don't see the mechanism to leave that in a covenant to make it enforceable. I don't see it. That's why I want to see from the fire chief, I want to see the document. Because if you can burn trash, people are going to burn trash.
So, question, so this has been in there for probably forever, right?
Yeah,
Has there been, have we had issues out here with people burning? when
Yes.
they shouldn't have been?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I talked to them.
Okay.
And they did what they wanted.
They didn't pull a permit, they didn't go through any.
Didn't pull a permit, didn't call,
Yes.
red flag day and lighting it on fire. So it was a choice, I said, okay. So they put it out in the end, but I'm just saying, all those things in place are already there. Nobody ignored the covenant. So instead of you say, the covenant don't count, don't matter anyway, fine. Did you pull a Riley County permit? Well, it's a red flag day. I know you didn't do that. So, so now, that's what John said. So now they get a ticket. So what? Burn my house up.
Well, your insurance company would probably take them to court,
Yeah.
but that's a whole other matter.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah. But that's why Firewise is important. That's why you as property owners, we as property owners need to ensure that the property around our house is salvageable, is defendable. Thank you. It's defendable by our local fire department heroes. And if you don't trim the trees around your house, your neighbor lights his field on fire and then burns your house up, and these guys can't get to your house because you got cedars up piled on it. I mean, yeah, your neighbor screwed up, but you screwed up too because you didn't trim the trees. You didn't get the leaves out of your gutters.
And just for the record, the fire that was across, now it's almost 2 years, right? That's over there, that we worked, that everybody could watch from UP.
Mhm.
There were people, there's houses over there, and there was a road, and there was just, if you haven't been over there, that is nothing but cedars.
Mhm.
I mean, nothing but cedars, and we were telling those people, you need to be prepared to evacuate, because if this fire jumps this road and hits those cedars, we can't stop it. So, I'm very impressed with how our fire department handles. I mean, I've worked structure fires where we never run out of fire, never run out of water, and there wasn't a fire hydrant within miles. They're very good about with the pumpers and everything, but there's only a limit amount to what we can do, and especially on large fires like that. And so, I worked a fire a couple of years ago, that literally we set up, there was a house way back in the woods and there were cedars touching the side of the house. And we stationed there to protect the house, basically. So, that's issue in terms of keeping the cedars, especially trimmed back away from your house. That's the number one thing you can do to help protect it. So I'll put that little plug in. I know it's not necessary.
No, but it's true. And the other thing is they're gonna triage. They're gonna show up and there's gonna be two houses are gonna get up on fire, and one of them is defendable because they did Firewise and they took the trees back, and the other one's got cedar trees piled on top of their house, they're gonna defend the one they can defend. They're gonna have to make a choice.
We're gonna try to defend everything we can, but it will be a call made on
It will.
in terms of what can and can't be done, so.
So be thoughtful.
I mean, well, and then the fire last year, up at Fancy Creek, that up on top of that hill. You had one house up there, and you had pretty much every firefighter in the county up there, and they couldn't save it. Because of the winds and the fire, so.
If you don't know it also, that a fire burned, a house burned here in Lakeside, I don't know, 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, about 5 years ago, that's.
Yeah, and it burned up. I mean, they showed up and, I mean, it's full of ammo and then the ammo was going off and they couldn't even get close to it to put the fire out because the bullets were flying everywhere. So, anyway. But so we had a fire out here and the house got lost. It was Lakeside, but still it happened.
It's a perfect segue to number 17, firearms.
17 firearms. Thank you. Segue. No discharge of firearms should be allowed within University Park Improvement District. 17. And all I have for that. Need info. So go ahead, man.
I looked, I'm still looking, that's gonna be more of a state than a county issue at that level, because I know at least in Minnesota, there were regulations on how far from dwellings you were allowed to shoot. It was 500 feet back in the day. I have not been able to find anything Kansas related yet, but there probably is, because I know.
Are you looking for that one then?
I have in the past, yeah, kind of deal, so.
So if someone goes to the police department and asks about nuisance, I would say that's an opportunity sitting there in front of them to ask them a clear, clean question of, is there a restriction on firearms near residential area? What's the distance? I don't know. However you want to phrase the question, but if you're at the police department, that'd be a time to ask that question.
Leave that in there because.
It is.
University Park, no firearms. So if I go behind my house in the University Parks area, I can't shoot firearms, correct? No.
On University Park land.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that.
well, that's what I'm asking. Do
No.
we leave it in just for University Park?
This is not for University Park.
No, this is.
This is for, the covenants is for property owners on
Within it.
Then you.
on private,
So what is the rule right now for University Park? Can
I believe-
Can I go in the back, set up deer stand and shoot?
It says.
remember I said earlier that there was questions that I don't know and I don't want to answer.
University Park, that's what
Yeah,
I'm saying.
so how it's worded would be allowed within UP improvement district, so anything that University Park or we own inside of University Park, cause we're within the district.
So it's not.
Right,
not-
anything
Not
not
allowed.
in the district is currently not allowed
So-
according to the.
I mean, I guess it is owned, it's private property. So if I went on the farmer's property next door and set up a range and shot on this property without his permission, then I would be trespassing on his property. So I personally see that at this question on University Park property, like down in the woods kind of deal. I see that as a separate question from the covenant, that needs to be handled separately. I think this question is can I shoot a gun on my land? Can I put a range up on my property and shoot a 22 or a
Questions really on that.
there's two questions, and both those questions would be something for the state or the local police department to answer. So if there's a distance thing,
It's usually a distance thing for residential area.
that's the easiest answer. If it's a distance thing, but if it's the property owner makes that choice. It gets messier. So that one definitely needs to carry to the next discussion to see, I mean, people are doing it already. People are shooting guns on their personal lots in University Park and not on University Park property.
Well, there's also another party that has potential interest in this is the Corps of Engineers. And I think they have some pretty restrictive. things
Right.
What you can and cannot.
Right,
do.
no, here's the deal about Corps of Engineers, you can fire a gun, you can hunt on Army Corps property, what you cannot do, and they say this, you cannot do target practice on Army Corps property. You can't even go on Army Corps property and range your gun in,
But you can hunt on it.
but you can hunt all day long. Jeez,
Keep missing and hitting that sign.
you can hunt that tree, that perfect target until you hit zero. But anyway, that rule is out there. We all know you can hunt on Army Corps, you can fire weapons and all, but you cannot do target practice. And I know that because way back when I got here, somebody was down in the woods, obviously shooting a 22 or maybe a bigger gun at a target. And they came out and did something about it, it was down on Army Corps property, so. But there's no good answer, or I don't have an answer on that. That one needs to be resolved You know, that's a safety thing. I mean, do we really want, you know, so yeah, you can shoot a 20, let's say you can shoot a 22, can I shoot a rifle gun, you know, or a deer rifle on my property? You know, can I shoot a, you know, what line, where do you draw the line? You know, on what can be shot in University Park on the property? So the best answer is the state or the local police.
So question, is University Park considered within the city limits of Manhattan?
No.
No,
It is not. Okay.
It is not in that land regulation document. There's nothing in there about it. I've looked too, yeah. You know, so, you know, so, I mean, we're almost done with this, but let me segue a little bit. So let's say in the end, we have some outliers. Well, the other thing is the option is we go to the county commissioners and they have already updated that document to reflect the donkey deal. And we request them make some changes, you know, there's some open items they've missed, you know, never came up before. But we feel that there's 100 homes out here. We feel it's a concern. Let them write the document and then let their police enforce the document. You know, that's another way, you know, instead of us trying to enforce it in some way. So now we're going on property and say, hey, man, don't you shoot that gun. You know, that may not go well.
Are we,
Particularly you.
are we,
I'm joking, man, you know.
are we unincorporated then? Is that what we're?
Yes, we are. We are an unincorporated community is what we are. That's correct, Carla. That's what that document says, unincorporated.
Improvement district.
It's, right, but we are the unincorporated. So anyway, we definitely need more on that, you know. I mean, it's only a safety thing if you're downrange. If you're behind a gun, it's not so bad. So that's 17, 18. 18, civilian aircraft of any type shall be prohibited within University Park. This subsection does not prohibit emergency aircraft or emergency landings by civilian aircraft. I'm surprised this is even in here. You know, there's a helipad built out here. You know, that's an FAA requirement. And it's funny, it's like drones, you know, can you fly drones in University Park? When a drone's on the ground, cities and municipalities control the drone on the ground and they can ban it. When the drone is in the air, 2 inches in the air, it's FAA. That's it. That's every city, that's everywhere. So we have no authority over this one. That's what I would say. But I left it open because maybe somebody knows more than I do, and I would love for somebody to provide some detail on how we can enforce no aircraft. That's what we're talking here, you know, is drones. I
Well, we
mean,
can't use 17 because that says no firearms discharge.
yeah,
One way we can enforce.
yeah, that could help. So is anyone familiar with that one at all, and how to work that one?
I mean, Google Maps has University Park helicopter pad.
Yeah,
right on the
no, we
street.
have one, there's
So
no
that's
doubt.
probably why that's there.
Yes.
So that we can't use that as like a recreational personal use helicopter or landing pad. It's for.
Yeah, so
emergency.
luckily, it is on University Park private property, so University Park board could say that you can't land on that private property that's owned by University Park. That's different from me putting a helipad on the middle of my land. You know, I don't know, okay, I don't know if I could do it, I don't wanna do it, but I don't know if we even wanna try to listen to the covenant for the one-off that may ever happen. I don't know. Hopefully there's some restrictions out there on who can put a helipad. I mean, you're not gonna get a runway in, you know, for an airplane, but you technically, if you had enough land, you could put a helipad. Jeff could put a helipad over there probably, he's got enough land. Not you, Jeff and Lakeside.
Oh, I'm thinking.
Yeah, anyway,
Don't do it.
so we'll leave that on the next one because we don't have a clean answer, no clean answer, it just rides to the next one. So enforcement of these covenants shall be by proceedings at law or in equity against any person or persons violating or attempting to violate any covenant. Said legal action shall be to restrain violation or to recover damages. Violators shall be responsible for all administrative fees incurred for enforcement of these covenants. Said fees shall, at the discretion of the board of directors, be forwarded to the Riley County clerk and taxed against the real estate, you know, I suppose if we keep any covenants, that legal jargon needs to stay in there until we can hash it out at the end in the end. Any questions on that, comments? 19. This is what I was trying to say earlier, John, I couldn't find it. Number 20, invalidation of any of these covenants by judgment or court order shall in no way affect any or other provisions which remain in full force or effect. That's not what I meant. It's coming up. Any comment on that? I mean, it's legal jargon. 21, the above covenant shall be deemed and taken to be covenants running with the land and shall be binding upon all the lots in University Park Improvement District until same are changed or eliminated. Actually, it's funny. I thought there was a blurb in here about if it, just because it's not, just because you don't prosecute one of them doesn't mean you don't have, that the rest of them are still in force, huh?
You just read it.
Oh, is that it? I'm tired. My eyes ain't working right. Okay, so that's 21. It's legal jargon. I think if we kept any of them, that would have to be in there too. So, any overall thoughts on the covenants? Anything online? Kurt, you got anything? You're the only one there. He's probably sleeping. So, what I see at the next meeting, if I don't want to talk, I mean, I would prefer, I mean, we'll have an opportunity to talk about it, but everything that I said, I think is covered by Bob Isaac's letter. I don't really want to talk about it. Unless, I mean, we can talk about it, but I don't see what we're gonna say that's gonna change Bob Isaac's letter. So I only see the things that matter are the ones that we don't have a clean corresponding document next to it and on the same page. And I hope everybody, that finds something that matters to you, look it up, see if you can find that corresponding document. If you're working on something, you can share to the board you're working on it. If you want, we can put your name on there that you're working on it, so the other people aren't, or they can work with you in trying to solve it. You do one thing, they do another thing, everybody gets the end at the same time. So. anyway.
Todd, are you gonna do firearms?
I'll keep working on that one and then maybe do nuisance as well, because that one's gonna be a hard one, because what I consider a nuisance is not what you consider a nuisance, and that's not what RCPD that responds as a nuisance, so
Right.
that's a very hard, that's a
Yeah.
very big.
Subjective.
gray area.
And the important thing is what RCPD,
If we
Yeah,
can
what's
get
enforceable.
their document, they have some kind of
Yeah.
over encompassing document.
Yeah,
That's what we need. If we can get that and share that and stick that next door, and we can see if we're comfortable if that solves it.
so I'll take civilian aircraft just for fun.
Oh, yeah, take the easy one here.
Hey, nobody else was leaping up.
No, they were not, were they?
Good job.
Okay, so. Is there anything else?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You say you're paying $18 for garbage. Who are you getting that from? Because it's costing me
He has no
$30.
idea.
I know. I know.
I just wondered who he's getting that from.
What do we pay?
I think we played $30.
Yeah, that's what I'm paying.
That's what we think.
That makes me feel better.
I just put mine in the Luna's trash. We don't have to pay anything.
I just let mine go down the street. Tom's picking up my trash down the road.
I'm just in my camp at work right now.
All right, so Charity, got anything?
I make a motion to adjourn this covenant meeting.
I agree.
Yeah.
I second it.
All in favor?
I.
Aye. Thank you for coming. Thank you.
Yeah, Joanne, I'll just leave my can out.
I'd wait. Because